Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Starfire, watching the stars through the main window. His ship had been traveling for 3 months now, farther from Earth than any human had ever gone before. The mission was simple: explore new systems and look for signs of life. What they found was nothing like what they expected. Lisa Rodriguez sat at her station, listening to radio signals from space. Most of the time she heard nothing but static and the usual noise from distant stars. But today was different. Her equipment picked up something strange, a signal that was clearly made by intelligent beings. "Captain," Lisa called out, her voice tight with excitement, "I'm getting a distress signal." "It's not from any human ship." Jake walked over to her station quickly. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. The signal is coming from near that dying star we passed yesterday. Someone is in trouble over there." Jake looked at the navigation display. The area around the dying star was dangerous. The gravity was all wrong, and radiation levels were high. Any ship caught there would have a hard time getting out. "How far away?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours at full speed," Lisa replied. Jake thought for a moment. Earth's rules were clear. First contact with alien life had to be reported back to headquarters before any action was taken. But 6 hours might be too long for whoever was sending that signal. "Ben, get to the medical bay and prepare for possible casualties," Jake ordered. Dr. Ben Carter nodded and left the bridge quickly. "Amy, I need you to check our rescue equipment," Jake continued. Chief Engineer Amy Foster was already moving toward the equipment storage. "Sir," Lisa spoke up again, "should we contact Earth first?" Jake looked at the display showing the distress signal. It was getting weaker. "If we wait for orders from Earth, whoever is out there will be dead. We're going to help them." The Starfire changed course and headed toward the dying star. As they got closer, their sensors picked up a ship caught in the star's gravity field. The vessel was unlike anything humans had ever built. It was dark gray, with sharp edges, and looked like it was built for war. "I'm seeing one life sign on that ship," Ben reported from the medical bay. "Whoever it is, they're hurt badly." Amy studied the alien ship through their scanners. "Captain, that ship is much more advanced than ours. Their engines are damaged, but the technology is incredible." Jake made his decision. "Prepare the rescue shuttle. Ben, you're with me. Lisa, keep trying to contact them." 20 minutes later, Jake and Ben were floating in spacesuits near the alien ship. They found an airlock that looked different from human designs, but worked the same way. The inside of the ship was dark and filled with smoke. They found the pilot in what looked like a command center. The being was tall, covered in scales like a reptile, and wearing armor that was cracked and burned. Green blood covered the floor around him. "He's alive," Ben said, checking the alien with his medical scanner. "But not for long if we don't get him help." The alien's eyes opened as they lifted him. He looked at the two humans with obvious fear and anger. He tried to speak, but the words were in a language they didn't understand. "It's okay," Jake said slowly, hoping his tone would help. "We're here to help you." The alien struggled weakly, clearly expecting the worst from his rescuers. Back on the Starfire, Ben worked to save the alien's life. The being's biology was different from humans, but blood was blood, and broken bones were broken bones. Ben did his best with what he had. Amy studied the alien ship, which they had pulled free from the gravity field. "Captain, this technology is amazing. Their engines use principles we've never seen before. If we could understand how they work." "Focus on keeping their ship running first," Jake told her. "We need to get this being back to his people." 3 days later, the alien was awake and sitting up in the medical bay. He watched the humans with suspicious eyes. Through simple gestures and basic math, they managed to start communicating. The alien's name was something like Zexhai. His people were called the Kithara. He seemed surprised that the humans had rescued him instead of killing him or taking him prisoner. When Amy brought him to see his repaired ship, Zexhi's attitude changed completely. He looked at the work she had done, and then at her with something like respect. "Good work," he said in broken English, having learned a few words from listening to the crew. "Thank you," Amy replied. "Your ship is very advanced. I learned a lot from fixing it." Zexhi nodded slowly. He spent the next few days watching the humans work. He seemed amazed by how they solved problems and worked together. When it was time for him to leave, Zexhi stood before Jake on the bridge. He spoke slowly in his broken English. "You saved Zexhi. Kithara, remember, you are warriors like us, but different. You help enemy. This is ... strange thing." "You weren't our enemy," Jake replied. "You were someone who needed help." Zexhi tilted his head, clearly confused by this idea. Among his people, strangers were enemies until proven otherwise. "I go now. Tell my people about humans. Tell them humans are ... not weak, not prey." He paused, searching for words. "Humans are dangerous, but dangerous in good way." Before leaving, Zexhi did something unexpected. He placed his hand on Jake's shoulder, a gesture of respect among his people. "We meet again, Jake Morrison of humans. Next time, maybe we fight together instead of Zexhi needing rescue." As the alien ship disappeared into space, Jake wondered what he had started. Earth would want a full report about first contact. But something told him this meeting with Zexhi was just the beginning of something much bigger. Lisa was already recording messages to send back to Earth. Amy was drawing plans based on what she had learned from Kithara technology. Ben was writing medical notes about alien biology. None of them knew that across the galaxy, other species had been watching and waiting for this moment. They had been afraid of humans ever since Earth's first radio signals reached space. Now, they had an even bigger fear. Humans had just made friends with the Kithara, the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The rescue of one alien was about to change everything for everyone. 3 months had passed since the Starfire returned to Earth. Jake Morrison found himself sitting in the biggest meeting room he had ever seen. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the chamber, all talking in worried voices about what had happened between humans, and the KYTHR Ambassador Helen Brooks sat next to Jake, shuffling through papers nervously. She had been chosen to speak for all of humanity at this emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. Across the room, Zexhi stood with 3 other Kithara warriors. He looked different now. His armor was polished, and he carried himself like a leader. The chamber fell silent as a tall, pale alien with large eyes walked to the center platform. This was Mortek, the leader of the Zelani Federation and head of the Galactic Council. His people had been the peacekeepers of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. "We gather today because of a dangerous development," Mortek announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "For the first time in recorded history, 2 apex predator species have made contact and formed an alliance." Helen leaned over to Jake. "What does he mean by apex predator species?" Mortek seemed to hear her question. "Ambassador Brooks, your people are new to galactic society, so you may not understand. An apex predator species is one that evolved through constant warfare and survival challenges. These species are naturally aggressive, highly adaptable, and extremely dangerous." A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing images of different alien species. "In the past 5,000 years, we have identified 12 apex predator species. Most destroyed themselves before reaching space travel. 3 were contained on their home worlds before they could spread. 2 were eliminated by joint galactic action when they became too dangerous." The images changed to show the Kithara. The Cathara are the only apex predator species we allowed to join galactic society. This was a mistake. In their first century of space travel, they conquered 47 worlds and enslaved 6 different species. HFY stood up, his voice booming across the chamber. We conquered worlds that attacked us first. We enslaved species that tried to enslave us. Cathara take only what others tried to take from us. That is exactly the problem, Mortek replied. Your species sees every interaction as a potential fight. You solve problems with violence first and questions later. The holographic display now showed images of Earth and human cities. Humans are even more concerning. Your species has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history. You have weapons that could destroy your own planet. You fight each other over resources, ideas, and territory that you could easily share. Jake stood up. We also help each other. We have art, music, and literature. We explore space to find new knowledge, not just to conquer. Yet when faced with an unknown alien in distress, your first instinct was to rescue them, despite the danger. Mortek said, this shows you are naturally protective of other beings, which makes you want to fight anyone who threatens them. Helen was beginning to understand. You're afraid of us because we care about others? We are afraid because history teaches us what happens when apex predator species work together, Mortek explained. The display showed ancient battlefields and destroyed worlds. The last time 2 such species formed an alliance, they conquered half the galaxy before we could stop them. An alien that looked like a giant insect clicked its way to the speaking platform. The Hive Mind Collective agrees with this Alani assessment. Humans and Cathara must remain separate and confined to their home systems. More aliens spoke up, all saying the same thing. Humans and Cathara were too dangerous to be allowed to work together. They must be kept apart for the safety of everyone else. HFY walked to the center platform, his armor making metallic sounds with each step. Cathara have followed council rules for 200 years. We have not conquered new worlds. We have not enslaved new species. We trade fairly and fight only when attacked. That is true, Mortek admitted. But now you have found kindred spirits in humans. Together, you could become unstoppable. Maybe that is what Galaxy needs, HFY replied. Maybe weak species hide behind council because they fear becoming strong themselves. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several species demanded that HFY be removed from the meeting. Others called for immediate military action against both Earth and the Cathara. Homeworld. Helen stood up and waited for the noise to die down. What if we prove you wrong? What if humans and Cathara can work together peacefully? Impossible, said a reptilian alien with bright blue scales. Predator species cannot resist the urge to expand and dominate. Give us 3 frontier worlds, Helen continued. Empty worlds that no one else wants. Let us build colonies there together. If we prove we can cooperate without threatening anyone, will you accept us? The chamber fell silent. Mortek looked at the other council members. They whispered among themselves for several minutes. 3 worlds, Mortek finally said. But they must be far from all established civilizations, and you will be watched constantly. Any sign of military expansion or aggressive behavior will result in immediate intervention. Jake looked at HFY, who nodded slowly. We accept these terms. Then it is decided, Mortek announced. But know this, the entire galaxy will be watching. Many species here believe you will fail and prove that apex predator species cannot be trusted. As the meeting ended, Jake and HFY found themselves walking together toward the exit. Other species moved away from them, fear clear in their movements. They really are afraid of us, Jake observed. Good, HFY replied. Fear makes enemies honest, better than false friendship that hides knives. What? Do you think will happen on these colony worlds? Zexhai stopped walking and looked at Jake directly. Humans saved Zexhai when they could have left him to die. Humans fixed Kithara's ship when they could have stolen technology. Maybe humans and Kithara together can build something new. Something that scares them even more than they already are. Something that makes fear unnecessary, Zexhai said. But first, we prove we can work together without destroying everything around us. As they left the council chamber, neither of them noticed the small recording devices that several species had planted to monitor their conversations. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were already making plans to ensure the human Kithara. Alliance would fail, one way or another. The real test was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the council meeting, and the 3 colony worlds were taking shape faster than anyone had expected. Danny Walsh wiped sweat from his forehead as he stepped back to admire the ship he and Torvak had just finished building. The vessel looked like nothing else in the galaxy, sleek human curves mixed with angular Kithara armor plating. "This design is very good," Torvak said in his heavily accented English. The Kithara engineer had learned the human language quickly, just as Danny had picked up basic Kithara words. Human ideas for speed, Kithara ideas for strength. Together, better than either alone. Danny nodded, running his hand along the hull. "The council observers are going to hate this. Every ship we build makes them more nervous." On the other side of the shipyard, Rachel Stone was teaching a group of young Kithara pilots how to fly in formation with human fighters. The differences in their flying styles had created something new. Humans were creative and unpredictable, while Kithara were disciplined and precise. "Remember," Rachel called out over the radio, "stay loose but stay together. We're not trying to look perfect. We're trying to be impossible to predict." Nexther, the lead Kithara pilot, responded immediately. Understanding, Rachel Stone. Chaos with purpose, like hunting back that thinks. The mixed squadrons had been practicing for months. Now, what they had created scared even their own commanders. Human pilots could adapt to any situation instantly, while Kithara pilots never broke formation or abandoned their wingmates. Together, they fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The peaceful development was interrupted when urgent messages arrived from the Outer Rim. Lisa Rodriguez, now head of communications for the colonies, brought the news to the Joint Command Center where Jake Morrison and War Chief Kexven were planning the next phase of construction. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from 3 different systems," Lisa reported. "Something called the Hive Mind is attacking frontier colonies. The Council's peacekeeping forces can't stop them." Jake looked at the tactical display Lisa had prepared. "What do we know about this Hive Mind?" "They're cybernetic beings," Lisa explained. "Part machine, part biological. They assimilate other species into their collective consciousness. Every person they capture becomes part of their army." Kexven studied the attack patterns on the display. "These are not random raids. Hive Mind moves with purpose, like army with single brain controlling all parts." "The Council forces?" Jake asked. "Getting destroyed," Lisa said grimly. "Their ships are designed for peacekeeping, not real war. The Hive adapts to their tactics within hours." Jake and Kexven looked at each other. They both knew what needed to be done, but they also knew the consequences. Any military action by their alliance would be seen as proof that they couldn't be trusted. "Show me the latest attack," Kexven ordered. The display changed to show footage from a planet called Vera Prime. Hive Mind ships surrounded the world while mechanical warriors marched through cities. The defending forces were clearly outmatched. 20,000 civilians trapped on that world, Lisa reported. "The Council fleet is retreating." Jake made his decision. "Signal General Nick Parker on Earth. Tell him we need our best people here. Now." and contact Battlemaster Vixlin on the Cathara homeworld. Sir, if we intervene, the Council will say we're proving their point about predator species, Lisa warned. If we don't intervene, 20,000 people die while the Council runs away, Jake replied. Some things are more important than politics. 3 days later, a joint human Cathara strike force assembled near Vera Prime. General Parker commanded the human forces, while Vexlin led the Cathara warriors. They had never fought together before, but their planning sessions showed how well their tactics could work together. Cathara forces will hit their main battle line head-on, Vexlin explained to the mixed command staff. Hive Mind expects this. What they will not expect is human forces striking from 12 different directions at the same time. Our people excel at improvisation, Parker added. We'll keep them confused while your warriors break their formations. The battle began at dawn. Cathara ships charged straight at the Hive Mind fleet, their heavy weapons blazing. The cybernetic forces moved to intercept, just as expected. That's when Rachel Stone's fighter squadrons struck from 6 different angles, using tactics that seemed to make no sense until the Hive realized they were being surrounded. On the planet's surface, human and Cathara soldiers worked together for the first time in combat. Danny Walsh had equipped them with hybrid weapons. That combined human flexibility with Cathara durability. The mechanical warriors of the Hive Mind had never faced enemies who could adapt their tactics in the middle of a fight. Left flank, move now, shouted a human sergeant over the radio. 3 Cathara warriors immediately understood and charged forward, their natural coordination covering for the human squad's creative but risky maneuver. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Hive Mind forces were in full retreat, and every civilian on Vera Prime had been evacuated safely. Not a single Hive ship escaped to report back to their collective news of the victory, spread across the galaxy within days. The footage showed human and Cathara forces fighting side by side with terrifying efficiency. Other species watched in amazement as the 2 predator species saved lives instead of taking them. But the reaction from the Galactic Council was exactly what Jake had feared. Emergency sessions were called. Several species demanded immediate action against the Alliance. The Zelani Federation began mobilizing their fleets. They saved those people, pointed out one of the few council members who supported the Alliance. Isn't that what peacekeepers should do? They prove they can work together in combat, Mortek replied grimly. That makes them more dangerous than ever. Today, they saved lives. Tomorrow, they could conquer worlds. Back on the colony worlds, Jake and Kexven were receiving reports from their intelligence networks. Several species were secretly building up their military forces. Trade restrictions were being discussed. Some council members were even talking about preemptive strikes. They fear us more now than before, Kexven observed as they watched footage of their forces returning home as heroes. Because we showed them what we're capable of when we work together, Jake agreed. The question is, what do we do about it? The answer would come sooner than either of them expected. The galaxy's fear was about to turn into action, and the real test of the human Cathara alliance was just beginning. The galaxy had changed in the 2 weeks since the Vera Prime battle. Kate Murphy sat in her small intelligence office on New Eden Colony, reading reports that made her stomach turn. 12 different species had joined together under Zelani leadership to form what they called the Galactic Defense Coalition. Their stated goal was simple: contain the human Cathara alliance before it could threaten galactic peace. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Kate said as Kex Dow, her Cathara counterpart, entered the room. The reptilian spy moved silently. Despite his size, a skill that had served both their species well in gathering information. "Show me," Kexdal requested, his English much improved after months of working together. Kate activated the holographic display. Trade embargo starts tomorrow. No species in the Coalition will buy or sell anything to human or Cathara worlds. They're also establishing patrol fleets around our territories. Blockade, Kexdal observed. Act of war in Cathara culture. In human culture too, but they're calling it a protective measure, Kate replied. They claim they're protecting other species from our aggressive expansion. Kexdal studied the patrol patterns shown on the display. These ships carry weapons. Real weapons, not peacekeeping tools. Kate nodded grimly. And that's not the worst part. She changed the display to show financial records. Someone has been funding rebel groups in both human and Cathara space. The money trail leads back to Coalition accounts. They pay others to attack us while claiming they want peace, Kexdal said, his voice growing dangerous. Coward tactics. Before Kate could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the colony. Emergency broadcasts filled every screen and speaker, showing scenes of destruction from the Joint Research Station Unity. The facility, built in neutral space between human and Cathara territories, was on fire. Lisa Rodriguez's voice came over the emergency channel. All personnel, we have confirmed explosions at Research Station Unity. Casualty reports are coming in now. Jake Morrison's face appeared on screen from the colony's command center. This is a direct attack on civilian researchers, both human and Cathara scientists were working on Unity. Among the confirmed dead is Dr. Ben Carter and his entire research team. Kate felt her hands shake as she read the casualty list. 47 people dead, including some of the brightest minds from both species. These weren't soldiers or politicians. They were scientists working on medical research and agricultural improvements. Coalition ships were in the area, Kexdal reported, checking his own intelligence sources. But they claimed their sensors detected nothing. Of course they didn't, Kate said bitterly, because they were probably the ones who planted the bombs. The news reached Admiral Sam Foster and Fleet Commander Zertek within hours. Both leaders had been preparing for possible military action since the Coalition formed, but neither had expected such a direct attack on civilians. 47 people, Sam said, as he and Zertek met in the war room aboard the flagship Defiance. They killed researchers and called it an accident. Not accident, Zertek replied firmly. Cathara, no explosions. This was planned attack. Multiple bombs, perfect timing. Work of professionals. Sam studied the tactical displays showing Coalition fleet positions. They're testing us. They want to see how we respond to provocation. Then we show them, Zertek said, his claws extending slightly. Strike fast, strike hard, leave no doubt about our strength. But we do it smart, Sam added. We're not the monsters they claim we are. We prove that by how we fight, not just that we can fight. The joint response came 3 days later. Human and Cathara forces struck simultaneously at Coalition supply. Lines across 7 star systems. But instead of the bloodbath that everyone expected, something strange happened. Not a single Coalition ship was destroyed. Admiral Foster's forces used advanced tactics to disable enemy vessels without killing their crews. Cathara warriors, known for their fierce fighting, carefully captured Coalition facilities without harming civilians. The raids were surgical, precise, and terrifyingly effective. Impossible, gasped Coalition Admiral Veltar as his entire fleet was disabled within 30 minutes. No force could coordinate attacks across 7 systems with such precision. The message was clear. The Alliance could have destroyed every Coalition ship and killed thousands of soldiers, but they chose not. The restraint was more frightening than any massacre would have been. They're showing us they could destroy us any time they want, Mortek told the emergency council session. This demonstration of controlled power is their way of telling us. We only live because they allow it. But the Coalition's response was to escalate further. More ships were built. More species were recruited. Fear was driving them to prepare for a war that nobody really wanted. On the colony worlds, the Alliance members watched these developments with growing concern. Danny Walsh and Torvok continued building ships, but now they were clearly warships, instead of exploration vessels. Rachel Stone's pilots practiced combat formations instead of peaceful patrols. "They're making us become what they fear," observed Dr. Julia Martinez, who had taken over the research programs after Ben Carter's death. "Every action they take forces us to become more military, more aggressive." Jake and Kexven met privately to discuss their options. The office was small and simple, but the decisions made there would affect the entire galaxy. "We could withdraw," Jake suggested. "Pull back to our home systems. Let them have their embargo and their patrols." "And then what?" Kexven asked. "They killed our people," Jake Morrison. "In Kithara culture, such acts demand response." "In human culture, too," Jake admitted. "But if we respond with force, we prove their point about predator species being dangerous." "Maybe their point is correct," Kexven said quietly. "Maybe we are dangerous. Question is, dangerous to whom?" Jake looked out the window at Human End. Kithara children playing together in the colony's central park. They had grown up together, learned together, become something new together. We're dangerous to their old way of thinking, Jake realized. They can't control us, can't predict us, can't make us fit into their neat categories of strong and weak species. So what do we do? Jake's answer would determine whether the galaxy moved toward peace or war. We show them that dangerous doesn't have to mean evil. We protect what we've built here, and we make it clear that anyone who threatens our people will face consequences. The real conflict was about to begin. The attack came without warning at dawn on New Eden. Mary Johnson was teaching her mixed class of human and Kithara children when the explosion started. Through the classroom window, she could see coalition ships dropping bombs on the residential areas where families from both species lived together. "Everyone get down," Mary shouted, pushing the children under their desks. Little Sarah Williams, only 8 years old, was crying as she held hands with her best friend Kextar, a young Kithara whose scales were still soft and bright. "Why are they hurting us?" Sarah asked. "We didn't do anything wrong." Mary had no answer. The Coalition had launched what they called a preemptive defensive strike against the colony worlds. Their excuse was that the Alliance was preparing to invade galactic space, but everyone knew the real reason. They were terrified of what humans and Kithara could become together. The bombing lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 3,000 civilians were dead, including families who had been building the first truly integrated society the galaxy had ever seen. Among the victims were the parents of several children in Mary's class. Colonel Pete Harrison and War Captain Dexmar received the casualty reports while standing in the smoking ruins of what had been the colony's medical center. Dr. Julia Martinez was treating wounded civilians with equipment salvaged from the wreckage. "They targeted civilian areas on purpose," Pete said, his voice shaking with anger. "Schools, hospitals, family housing. This wasn't a military strike. They wanted to kill our future," Dexmar replied, his claws digging into the debris. "Kill the children who prove our species can live together." Julia looked up from the patient she was treating. "We've lost too many people, Pete. The survivors are asking when we're going to strike back." "Soon," Pete promised. "But when we do, it won't be random bombing of innocent people." The response came within days. Joint Human Kithara forces launched, the most coordinated military campaign in galactic history. But instead of targeting civilian populations like the Coalition had done, they went after military and government facilities with surgical precision. Admiral Sam Foster and Fleet Commander. Zyrtec led fleets that moved through 7 star systems. Like lightning, Coalition military bases were captured intact. Government centers were seized without damaging surrounding cities. Command ships were disabled and their crews taken prisoner, but no one was killed unless they refused to surrender. "This is impossible," Coalition Admiral Tarvek transmitted as his flagship was surrounded by Alliance vessels. "No force could coordinate attacks across this much space." "You attacked our families," Admiral Foster replied over the communication channel. "You killed our children, but we are not you. Surrender and your crew lives." The efficiency was terrifying. In 3 days, the Alliance forces dismantled Coalition military power across multiple star systems without destroying a single civilian. Target: they proved they could wage war with a precision and restraint that made their enemies look like barbarians in comparison. Back on New Eden, Dr. Julia Martinez was making a breakthrough that would change everything. Working with both human and Cathara scientists, she had perfected fusion technology that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. "The energy output is incredible," she explained to Jake and Kexvan in her rebuilt laboratory. "Combined human creativity with Cathara engineering knowledge has given us power systems that are decades ahead of anything the Coalition has." "Weapons?" Kexvan asked. "If we want them to be," Julia admitted. "But also faster ships, better shields, more efficient life support systems. We could build a civilization that doesn't need to fight for resources because we have unlimited clean energy." Jake studied the technical readouts. "How long before we can start production?" "The first power cores will be ready next week. Full production within a month." While the Alliance was developing revolutionary technology, something even more important was happening in the refugee camps. Human and Cathara families, who had lost everything in the Coalition bombing, were not just surviving together. They were becoming something new. Mary Johnson watched as human and Cathara children shared food, comfort, and hope. They had created their own language that mixed both species' words. They played games that combined human imagination with Cathara discipline. Most importantly, they had no fear of each other. "Look at them," Mary said to Dr. Martinez during a visit to the camps. "They don't see 2 different species. They just see friends." "The Coalition was right to be afraid," Julia replied quietly. "Not because we're going to conquer them, but because we're proving their whole system is wrong. They built their power on the idea that different species must be kept separate and controlled. And we're showing that cooperation makes everyone stronger." The children in the camps were not the only ones forming new bonds. Adult survivors from both species were working together to rebuild their communities. They shared skills, knowledge, and resources in ways that created solutions neither species could have developed alone. Human engineers learned Cathara metallurgy techniques, creating building materials that were stronger and lighter than anything previously possible. Cathara farmers adopted human agricultural methods, producing food that could grow in any environment. Together, they were building something that surpassed what either species could achieve separately. News of these developments spread throughout the galaxy, carried by traders and travelers who saw the Alliance colonies firsthand. Many species began to question whether the Coalition was really protecting them or just protecting the old power structure. "They're not the monsters we were told they were," reported a Zilani merchant who had traded with Alliance colonies. "I saw human and Cathara families working together, children playing together, scientists sharing knowledge freely. But the Coalition leadership refused to admit they might be wrong. Instead, they prepared for a final assault that would either destroy the Alliance or prove once and for all that predator species could not be trusted. Admiral Foster and Fleet Commander Zyrtec knew the end was coming. Their scouts reported Coalition fleets massing near the Galactic core, preparing for a decisive battle. They're going to throw everything. They have at us, Sam told his command staff. Every ship, every weapon, every alliance they can make. Good, Zyrtec replied. Better to end this quickly than let it drag on for years. Jake and Kexvan made the final preparations for what everyone knew would be the last battle. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same after this fight. Old Order was about to face the new, and only one would survive. The Coalition fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 200 ships from 15 different species surrounded the Zalani homeworld, waiting for the final battle that would decide the galaxy's future. Admiral Mortek stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his sensors for signs of the approaching Alliance forces. "Any word from the Alliance fleet?" he asked his communications officer. "Nothing, sir. Our long-range scanners show no ships approaching." Mortek frowned. The Alliance had to know about the Coalition gathering. Their intelligence network was too good to miss something this large. So where were they? The answer came an hour later, when Admiral Sam Foster's voice filled every communication channel in the system. "Coalition fleet, this is Admiral Foster of the Human Kithara Alliance. We are in position around your homeworld." "Impossible," Mortek gasped, checking his sensors again. "We show no ships in this system." "That's because you're looking for ships." "Built with old technology," Sam replied. "Our new fusion drives let us move faster and hide better than anything you've ever seen." Suddenly, Alliance ships appeared all around the Coalition fleet. They had been there all along, invisible to the older sensor systems. The technological advantage was so complete that the Coalition forces had been surrounded without even knowing it. "How many ships do you have?" Mortek asked, trying to count the vessels appearing on his screens. "Enough," came the reply from Fleet Commander Zyrtec. "But we are not here to fight unless you force us to." Supreme Commander Vertex, the highest-ranking Kithara military leader, spoke next. "Coalition fleet, you have two choices. Lower your weapons and prepare to receive our terms, or we will disable every ship in your fleet and deliver our terms anyway." Mortek looked at his tactical display. The Alliance ships were positioned perfectly to attack from every direction. Their weapons were clearly more advanced, and their coordination was flawless. A battle would be a massacre, with Coalition forces on the receiving end. "This is Admiral Mortek to all Coalition ships," he announced. "Stand down weapons and await further orders." An hour later, Mortek found himself in a shuttle heading toward the Alliance flagship. Ambassador Helen Brooks and Speaker Texvin met him at the airlock, their faces serious but not threatening. "You came to destroy us," Helen said without introduction. "Instead, you're going to listen to our proposal." They led him to a conference room where Admiral Foster and Supreme Commander Vertex were waiting. The walls displayed images of Alliance colonies, showing humans and Kithara working and living together in harmony. "We know what you're thinking," Admiral Foster said. "You believe we'll demand your surrender and start conquering the galaxy." "Won't you?" Mortek asked. "No," Speaker Texvin replied firmly. "We want something much more dangerous to your old way of thinking. We want to change how the galaxy works." Helen activated a holographic display showing a document. "The Accords of Mutual Survival, a new treaty system that will replace the old Galactic Council." Mortek read the terms with growing amazement. Instead of demanding tribute or territory, the Alliance was proposing a complete restructuring of galactic society. "No more species hierarchy," Helen explained. "No more laws that favor peaceful species over warrior species. No more keeping different types of civilization separate because someone is afraid, but someone is afraid of what they might become together." "You want to eliminate the council system entirely," Mortek realized. "We want to replace it with something better," Admiral Foster said. defense pacts based on shared values instead of genetic compatibility, trade agreements that help everyone prosper, and most importantly, no more suppressing species just because they evolved differently. Supreme Commander Vortex leaned forward. For too long, Galaxy has been ruled by fear. Fear of change, fear of strength, fear of what happens when different species work together. This fear has kept everyone weak. Other predator species are already asking to join us, Speaker Texvin added. The Corvani hunters, the Drex warrior clans, the Varian explorers. Species that have been forced to stay on their homeworlds because the Council feared them. Mortek studied the treaty documents. And if we refuse, then you refuse, Helen said simply. We're not going to force you to sign. But we're also not going to follow the old rules anymore. Any species that wants to join our alliance is welcome. Any species that wants to keep the old system can try, but they'll have to do it without us. You're not giving us a choice, Martek protested. You're too powerful now. If we don't join, you'll eventually replace us anyway. Yes, Admiral Foster admitted, but not through conquest, through example. Other species are already seeing what we've accomplished. They want the same opportunities for their people. On the view screen, images showed the rebuilt Alliance colonies. Human and Cathara children attended schools together. Scientists from both species worked side by side on projects that were advancing knowledge faster than ever before. Cities that combined the best of both architectures rose from ground that had been bombed just months earlier. This is what the galaxy could look like, Helen said. Not human worlds or Cathara worlds, but Alliance worlds where anyone can contribute. Their best qualities. Mortek was quiet for a long time, studying the images. Finally, he spoke. The other council members will never agree to this. Then they'll be left behind, Supreme Commander Vartek said. Galaxy is changing, whether they accept it or not. 3 days later, the signing ceremony took place aboard the newly constructed Alliance station. Representatives from 12 species put their names to the Accords of Mutual Survival, officially ending the old galactic order. Not every species joined immediately. The Zelani Federation and several others chose to maintain their separate territories under the old system. But even they agreed to peaceful coexistence with the new alliance. Admiral Foster, now Admiral of the Combined Alliance Fleet, stood with Supreme Commander Vertex, looking out at the stars from the station's observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see ships from 6 different species working together to build new colonies. Do you think we did the right thing? Admiral Foster asked. Look, Vertex replied, pointing to a nearby construction site where human and Cathara engineers were training members of 3 other species in fusion technology. Old system kept everyone separate and weak. New system makes everyone stronger. In the station's education center, Mary Johnson watched human, Cathara, and now Corvani children learning together. They spoke a language that mixed words from all. Their species. They played games that no single species could have invented alone. Most importantly, they saw no reason why different species couldn't be friends. The galaxy was right to panic, Mary said to Dr. Julia Martinez as they watched. The children. We didn't just unite 2 dangerous species. We proved that being different can make you stronger, not weaker. The old galaxy of fear and separation was ending. The new galaxy of cooperation and shared strength was just beginning.